to WEDucation. My name is Donna Kim, and this is the WEDucation podcast for up-and-coming wedding planners and anyone interested in weddings. So I can't even believe this is already my 4th episode. I had a lot of fun talking to Patrick Lally, the wedding DJ, last week, and this week I decided to shift gears and talk about what wedding planners want you to know before you hire them. So I was pretty lucky that when I started my wedding planning business, I started attracting the right kind of client pretty quickly. But in the beginning, I definitely took any client that wanted to pay me for my services, which was not a lot. And I figured I would learn on the job because I can learn things quickly. And I couldn't find a planner that wanted to let me apprentice with them. So I really had no choice if this is the business that I wanted to go in. So I was passionate about helping people get married, and I wanted to make it fun for them. So that kind of helped fuel me on when there were days that were really quiet and I would just watch the clock tick by. But those beginning clients really did teach me a lot. And I mean, every client actually taught me something. But I did learn about the clients that I wanted to attract and also the clients that I didn't want to attract. And that's probably a podcast for another day. But based on my experience for doing weddings, there seemed to be some consistent reminders that came up about what I thought I could share with you today. But I think what everyone needs to always remember is that first and foremost, don't forget that all wedding planners want you to have a great day. I mean, the best day, right? Because that's our job and that's why you hired us. And I believe the formula for a great wedding day comes from a lot of planning and troubleshooting in advance of the wedding, in addition to having the right wedding team for you. So that all being said, here are some of the top things I believe wedding planners want you to know before you hire them and when you're working with them. Probably the first thing I'd say is that we're not time travelers and we're not miracle workers. I put those together because I can't tell you how many times a bride or a groom has signed a contract and then wants me to go back and change it. And I've probably said this in every podcast, blog post, article I've written about wedding planning, but clients need to read their contracts before they sign them. Can't say it enough. Read your contracts. Ask questions before you sign. After you sign, you have no power, but before, there is a little power. Maybe power is the wrong word, but I think you know what I mean. That if you sign, then there's not really any changing. You agree to what the terms are on the contract. I've had maybe a third of my clients that have hired me that after they secured their wedding venue or their date, they have a copy of the contract and I'm looking at it and I start asking questions and then they get mad at me because I'm giving them information that affects their wedding day. For instance, I've had people that thought they would finish their wedding. They had a vision. Our wedding's going to end at 11 o'clock, and it clearly says on the contract that you have to end at 10. And then they get upset. Understandable. I've had a client that knew they signed their contract that said they had to purchase all of their alcohol through the vendor. And then when they decided that they wanted something different and they wanted to go a different route, I got angry emails saying that this was my job and I had to fix this. Really, in those situations, my hands are tied. You, as a client, have already agreed to sign a contract. I don't work for the venue, and I'm now in an uncomfortable position because you want me to speak or get angry on your behalf, and I haven't actually had anything to do with that interaction. So that's a tough one, but I think really remember to read your contracts. And remember, we're not time travelers. I often would say that if I could have predicted the future, I would be in a different business. And the next thing that I'd say is that we are not licensed therapists. So we can't magically change your family and friends, even though I know you'd like us to. As a planner, you do get very close to your clients, and that's just the nature of planning a very personal event. And I would say a good number of my clients became my friends, but it was after the wedding. I had a policy not to be connected with any of my clients on social media, on any of my personal accounts until after the wedding was over. And this is what worked well for me, but other planners have different boundaries and would have different policies, and that's totally fine. You have to do, again, what works for you. But often there were family issues that I would be made aware of in the planning process. And as a planner, you try to be sensitive to their circumstances, and I don't think I'd ever really offer advice unless I was asked, but I would try to listen. But it was surprising to me how many times people would get mad at me because of their personal situation. And this was upsetting for me because I don't even know the person. And as a planner, you're very immersed in the wedding day. If you're lucky, you get to meet a good number of the people at the rehearsal the day before. But it is a lot to try to remember all the faces and all the names, which is why I always try to get some help from the bride side and the groom side. But it's not always possible. So you just have to think very quickly on your feet and be very creative. I have a good memory, so that's also helpful. But I have a lot of stories of these situations where, the parents get upset. And again, that's probably another podcast, but I'll tell one of the stories right now. I had this couple. They were getting married in a beautiful outdoor New England location by a lake. It was just perfect for them. And we were doing the rehearsal, and everything was going very smoothly. And then after the rehearsal was done, the mother of the groom came up to me and she said, is that it? And I kind of looked at her like, yeah, that's it. We're all done. You have the rest of the day. I hope you have a great day. And she looked at me a little puzzled because she didn't like my answer, obviously. And she said, no, is that it? And then I looked at her again. I was trying to figure out what she was talking about. And I said, I'm sorry. And she said, no, is this it? Is this all I'm doing for the ceremony? Oh, that's what she was talking about. So, yeah, of course I had to say, well, this is what the couple had in mind. And this is all you're going to do. You're going to walk down the aisle. And she was clearly not happy with my answer. And so her answer to me was, well, but I created him. And I looked at her and I thought I heard that, but I didn't really know what to do with that. So I said, I'm sorry. And she said really more angrily at me, but I created him. And I acknowledged what she said. And I said, I understand that, but this is the wishes of the couple. And this is what we're going to follow for the ceremony. So she didn't like that answer. She took off her baseball hat, she threw it on the ground at my feet, and she stomped away. And I was kind of in shock because I find it so interesting. It's not my day. I didn't make up these rules. I'm just helping the couple facilitate. And it's interesting that the anger all gets displaced to me. And I sat there and I just was very professional. My assistant was there. We didn't say anything. We went back to the car. We closed the door. And then the two of us said at the same time, but, I created him. So that was kind of our giggle for the weekend. Luckily, she did come up to me later in the evening and apologize for her behavior. This was not the first or the last time that a bride's parents or groom's parents or anybody's parents would yell at me or relatives. And I think because I'm a highly sensitive person, those moments were really hard for me to take because I didn't like feeling people's anger, upsetness, whatever you wanted to call it. I didn't like when they were unhappy, and I took that very personally. But, you just have to be professional. I mean, I had to take it in. I had to figure out how to take care of it and displace it professionally. But yeah, I mean, even though a lot of planners hear a lot of things and we listen, we are not licensed therapists. So, but we often take on the role of one. And I didn't mind that, but this is something maybe to consider when you're going through wedding planning is, thinking about how you're talking to the people that are part of your wedding team, but not your family or your friends. So there's a distinction. So, and the next thing is that at the end of the day, we want to help you, but it is your wedding. It's your budget. It's your money. We're not your family. We're not your friend at that point, but we care about your wedding from a professional standpoint. And I think that's important to remember because we're invested in your day from a professional standpoint. And there is a very thin line because I felt very strongly, positively about most of my clients, and I wanted them to have a good day. And even if I didn't have a great connection with them, I still wanted them to have a good day. I never wished for an ill day on somebody. I might have wished for the day to move a little bit quicker, but I still wanted them to have a great day. So I think the next thing that I'd say, and this will come with some humor, is that, planners don't like to say no to someone, but sometimes you just have to. Maybe some people are better at saying no. This is maybe one of the hardest jobs that I had as a wedding planner was saying no. But, when I was helping a client plan a wedding, I was pretty quickly able to get a sense of what my client wanted. Maybe this is kind of my gift. It is to be intuitive and to know what they want. So often in the planning process, I would send an email and get the same email back from my bride, typically. And those were the moments where I knew, oh, this is good. We're in sync with each other and we're kind of thinking the same. And I would say, oh, I'm sharing a brain with my bride. This is good. I can anticipate her answers. And when this happened, I was really happy because I knew I was really helping her on a level before she even knew that I was helping her. So I was being almost proactive to what she wanted. It didn't always happen, but it was great when it did. And during a client-vendor meeting, when the vendor would ask my clients a question, they would often, as we got further into the process, they'd start to look at me for the answer. But then I'd look at them and I'd say, well, don't look at me. This isn't my wedding. This is your wedding. So it was a great feeling, though. I mean, because what it was that my clients trusted what my answer was going to be, and they wanted to know what my opinion was for this particular question. And those are really, lovely moments. But I also knew that this wasn't my decision to make. It was their decision. But sometimes you need to guide them a little bit. Like, in that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where Tula wants to go to college and she knows that her father will say no. So Tula's mother devises this plan to have him suggest that she goes to college. And they all say, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. So sometimes as a planner, you see things would be better if they're kind of shifted a certain way. So you sometimes want to shift things in their favor and make sure they understand that things work a certain way. I think, sometimes when you're in a venue, the venue has a very set way of doing things. And then a bride comes along and says, well, I don't want to do it that way. I want to do things in a different way. And you talk to the venue ahead of time and say, well, this is what my client's thinking. And they kind of give you all their reasons why it doesn't work. So then you as the planner have to sit there and think, is this something that I want to fight for my clients? Or is it something that I want to go back to my clients and say, I've already talked to the venue about this and this is going to be really difficult and here are the reasons why. So sometimes I'd have to weigh my options and figure out, is it a situation that you can fight for it or that that it's a lost cause? So I wouldn't say those happen that often, but there are some venues that have very particular guidelines and rules, and you just know in the time frame, okay, I could do that, but I'm going to lose 45 minutes and I've already know that I'm going to lose a certain amount of time. Is it worth it? So those are the things that I usually present to my client. I guess it's kind of like a lawyer, like you can't make the decision. You just give the options and let them make their decisions. And if they want to make a bad decision or a decision that you don't agree with, that's still their decision to make. And sometimes that happens and you have to honor that. So when I was working with my clients, we would have the saying, and it was, Donna says no. And Donna says no is an actual phrase that I would say. And this no, it wasn't a mean no. This was a Donna says no because this is the best situation. And you might not see it now, but you'll see it later because she's right. So Donna is right equals Donna says no. But in all seriousness, I didn't say no often. And again, probably the hardest thing for me to say, because what I want to say is yes. In customer service, I learned that the customer is always right. So when you have a client that would ask you to do things that weren't covered in the contract, my way around that would be to say, well, I'd be happy to do that, but it would be an additional fee since it falls out of the scope of our contract. And sometimes they would say that's fine, and I would bill them accordingly. And sometimes I'd get, well, that's a lot of money. I can find someone else that can do that for less. And then I'd say, well, that's a great idea. Maybe you should go that route. So again, it's saying no with love. And I'd like to think that my clients knew this. And this is why the phrase Donna says no was kind of funny and lighthearted. And it's kind of funny because I still use that today. Donna says no. And we all kind of laugh about that. But at the end of the day, I think what's important is that you should remember, or it's nice to remember, that wedding planners are just people too. We have feelings, we have good days, we have bad days. And sometimes I think a highly sensitive person, and like me, who didn't know this at the time, it's not a great combination for being a wedding planner because there's so much sensitivity that you're around. But I know also now that this is kind of one of my superpowers, and this was something I was able to really think on a different level. So I think those are the most important things, and the overall message that I'm giving is we're just like you, we're just human, and we want to help you, and the help goes both ways, right? So I hope you found that this podcast was interesting. If you have any ideas for others, I'd love to hear them. I'd love for you to leave me a comment. Thanks for listening again to WEDucation, my 4th episode. And until next time, I hope you have a great day. Bye now.